All right, friends, it's T-Man. We are back with another video on JasonBlaha, our favorite YouTuber, man. The gym lifting, recruiting, lifting slave himself, JasonBlaha. I'm going to do a video, or I guess reaction video to this. Let's see what Blaha has to say. Blaha says, stimulate, don't annihilate. Okay. That sounds positive.
Stimulate, don't annihilate. This is a quote from the multi-time Mr. Olympia, Lee Haney. Hey everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this.
The former Olympia, Mr. Lee Haney. Okay. Where's all that muscle? Guess it disappeared.
When we make this statement, really this is a statement about excessive training volume, not so much not training hard, but it could be about training hard. Because this is something that we've noticed over the years that when it comes to even being some of the best.
I can tell you this, Blaha is doing a fantastic job at accelerated aging by lifting these weights repetitively in the garage. So I guess if that's the goal, then he's really accomplished it because he's gained at least a good 20. My friends say he looks 80. So he's gained a good 23 years on his life. Accelerated aging.
Bodybuilders in the world, the lower to moderate volume guys, win just as many titles as the ultra high volume guys who live in the gym. Same thing in powerlifting. Plenty of world champions only lift 3 days a week. Okay, so people need to think about this for a minute. If there was a clear advantage to massive amounts of training, just training like that all the time, those guys would win everything. In other words, if it gave a 5 to 10% advantage, like a 10% advantage, every single guy on the Mr. Olympia,
New York money line,
winning every pro or world level natural bodybuilding show, most of the top power lifters, all these athletes would all be training for 3-4 hours a day. Okay, if it actually offered an advantage. But what you find is that those ultra high volume people who train that way, they don't seem to win any more often than the other.
I gotta tell you one thing. I never train in a catabolic state like Blaha does. I would never do that because it accelerates aging. It ages you, especially if you're on a diet, a fake diet, overfed, undernourished. That'll age you. If you eat your natural diet, a lot of it is not going to age you. You know what I mean? It accelerates aging. That's why people always ask me, why don't you lift? Or why don't you do this, do that? Well, I can't be all the time anabolic lifting. And when I am, and when I do lift, I make sure I'm anabolic, that I'm in a positive nitrogen balance. You understand me? So that I'm not aging, accelerated aging. People in factories, they're not going to be anabolic all the time. They're working labor jobs. That's where it really gets you, these heavy duty labor jobs. I learned that when I was young. I always ate really well, and I ate a lot of meat. I was always a meat eater. So I wasn't really sure. I didn't know that you had to be in a positive nitrogen balance. You want to be in a positive nitrogen balance, especially when you're working. You know what I mean? You don't want to be aging. That's the thing. You're aging if you're in a catabolic state. I'll explain this later in the video.
People do, okay? They don't seem to win any more often. But what we do see with a lot of it is more injuries, more burnout. We see the same thing when people just do endless amounts of drop sets and training beyond failure and all this stuff, right? This is what we see, but here's the reality. Most people, if they just train really, really close to failure, or they get to, muscle failure. And muscle failure, an example, this is muscle failure on this set of curls you see me doing right here. Watch these preacher curls in this video. I get to the last rep, it's grindy, and I have to strain through it. So then I slow down the eccentric a little bit, and then it just stops. I get to the bottom and I can't do a rep. That's it. That's what muscle failure means. You get people who say silly stuff, and that's what, even in studies, that's what they mean. They'll say silly stuff. Well, you got to go to absolute failure. Like, what do you mean? Till you can't go anymore, even with someone helping you, or rest, pausing. It's like that's not muscle failure. That's going beyond failure. Those are they're called.
I agree. Here's the thing. What is the purpose of going to failure lifting weights? Let's say you're adapted, okay? You're adapted to all these weights. You want to go to failure. Why? Because you think it's going to grow muscles. Weights don't grow muscles. They will definitely increase MPS. Muscle protein synthesis will be higher than breakdown. There is muscle protein breakdown there at the same time. Okay, muscles are breaking down, but there's a window now. That window means that the protein synthesis is slightly higher than you walking around in the street. You understand me? As a normal person, because you lifted weights. So there's a larger window of MPS. So what do you need to do if there's a large open window of MPS, muscle protein synthesis? Then breakdown. What do you got to do? Well, you got to go and you got to do this. This is what you got to do, okay? If muscle is going to gain mass, protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. Well, it may be common to view resistance training as a powerful stimulus for protein synthesis. It is. It's a stimulus that the window of protein synthesis would be higher than protein breakdown in that moment. But there's timing as well. You want to eat 2 hours before. Like, if you don't eat within that 2 hour period, you don't get enough protein in. After that workout, you're not anabolic, you're not in a positive nitrogen balance, then it's blunted. Your workout was a waste. You may even lose muscle, and I'll explain this too later. It is also important to recognize that it is a signal for protein breakdown. It is a signal for protein breakdown, but the window for MPS, apparently, according to science, is a lot larger. That's all. So, yeah. Let me see here. No, I did this one already. Hold on. People that train in a fasted state, listen to what it tells you here. Muscle protein breakdown, MPB, exceeds muscle protein synthesis in the fasted state. So when you're fasted, guess what's exceeding faster than protein synthesis? Muscle protein breakdown is exceeding muscle protein synthesis. When you're in a starvation diet, hello? That's why the government, they all promote starvation diets. They want to weaken you. They want to weaken the public. They want to make you weak. They want to make you think that starving yourself somehow is going to correct all your, it's going to fix all your metabolic diseases and all these problems that you're suffering from. When in fact, all you have to do is stop eating a fake drug-induced diet and eat your natural diet, meat, and all your problems and cancers and sicknesses and ailments and everything else is going to go away. You understand me? It's going to go away. That's right. So them telling you to, oh man, you should be a starvation diet and all that. Well, yeah, with breakdowns exceeding protein synthesis, and guess what? You're going to be a skinny shell of yourself. Now, it says here, and MPS exceeds MPB in the fed state. See that? Muscle protein synthesis exceeds MPB in the what? In the fed state, when you're fed. Fed what? Protein. What are you fed? Protein, dude. It says here, exercise stimulates both muscle protein synthesis and breakdown, but the increase in synthesis exceeds the increase in breakdown. See that? But the increase in synthesis exceeds the breakdown. How does it do that? In exercise. That's the whole point. It doesn't build muscles lifting weights. What it does is it opens a window that exceeds breakdown in protein synthesis. So now you need to go and eat. Get it, dude? Get it? So which leads to what? Net muscle protein gain. In contrast, mixed meal consumption, no mixed meal, protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown, okay? Increases the muscle protein synthesis rate, but suppresses muscle protein breakdown. That's about it, okay, dude? This is an NCBI report, too. Muscle protein synthesis response to whatever, obese men or something. It's not important. Yeah. See, if muscle is going to gain mass, protein synthesis must exceed protein breakdown. Now, what is important about that? What is important about what does exercise do? it increases in synthesis exceeds the increase in breakdown. So what's so special about exercise? What's so special about lifting weights? Well, it exceeds protein synthesis exceeds protein breakdown. The window is open now, but you need to exceed what? Breakdown. By doing what? Eating protein, like it says there. Hello. Blaha, he thinks that weights build muscles. They don't build muscles. Anyways, let's get on with this video.
Called the old school Weider intensity techniques, and quite frankly, they don't really seem to produce any more muscle growth.
They don't produce any muscle growth. What is he talking to? They don't produce any muscle growth, Blaha. And there's no point in going to failure because just exercising alone opens a window for protein synthesis is higher than protein breakdown, like it tells you in science. That's why you got to rush down to the buffet or wherever, I don't know, go home and eat loads of protein. You understand me? That's how you're going to see growth. You're going to see massive amounts of growth there.
A little more off of a first set, but then you can't do as much work in a workout.
He is wasting his time in hopes that one day lifting these weights are going to eventually grow those muscles. No, Blaha. You failed. 35 years, a failure. They don't build muscles. If you haven't learned in 35 years that weights don't build muscles, they just accelerate aging, and they open a window that is a lot bigger for protein synthesis than breakdown, that's why you're failing. You don't do any of the proper things, dude. And if being fasted, protein breakdown is higher than protein synthesis. And that's what you're doing. And then you're loading carbs to pretend you have muscles now because you've wasted your muscles away. And you're suffering from sarcopenia. You can reverse all these problems if you go on your natural diet. But you're stubborn, and stubborn people lose in life, like you.
Subject to a great deal of debate, but what they do is burn you out, beat you up, cause injuries. Okay? Injuries. Because what people are forgetting...
Isn't that Blaha's motto? He keeps getting injured. He's always injured. What the heck?
And this is even what we're seeing in a lot of the literature. We can argue and make hypothetical cases for more volume. We can make hypothetical cases for more frequency. The problem is you don't necessarily really see it reflected either in the real world or in the data. And that's the problem with a lot of this, because again, exercise science studies are not very good. They have too small a sample sizes, a lot of bias in the research. But this is why you see such conflicting data, because the measurement difference between the advantage of doing the really high versus lower volumes is usually so small that it's a statistical anomaly. Individual genetic variation can matter. That's why you see so many studies on the opposite end saying one is better than the other. Well, what people need to remember is that they would all be consistent. If there was a clear marked advantage, so what does that tell you? That one is not necessarily...
I just showed you the data from NCBI.
...better than the other in terms of producing actual growth. And it's mainly because people are probably not really recovering session to session. And if you're not recovering session to session...
My God, it has nothing to do... Wow, this guy thinks that weights build muscle on breatharian diets. You just need to recover. You need to go to failure. You need to recover. No, you don't need to do any of those things. What you need to do is go down and eat. Protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown. Get it? So you need to eat enough protein to suppress that breakdown. And there's a window for protein synthesis now. It'll start building. It only ever happens after a workout session. I'm really not joking. That's when you take advantage of it. That's the whole point. You're not taking advantage of it. None of you are. That's why you're all losing.
You're probably not going to make extra gains. If anything, your gains can be impeded. So this is why we don't see any consistency.
Your gains are impeded. Of course your gains are impeded. Everything is impeded. There's more breakdown now. If you're going to failure, there's more breakdown than protein synthesis. Now you've destroyed the window. What's the point? And you're not doing it properly anyway. So does it really matter? Nobody out there is doing it properly. I gotta explain to you. If you don't have money, do not waste your time going to a gym and lifting weights. Unless, of course, you just want to be good at lifting weights, okay? You want to get better at lifting and then pretend that you're a strong guy, run around and then convince people that you're a strong guy because you got good at lifting weights. You know what I mean? That's like a gymnast saying that he's better at doing all these things because you didn't do them, so he's better at you at being a gymnast. Of course he is. He does gymnastics. It's practiced. The average person in the street doesn't do gymnastics or lift weights, okay, or whatever.
In this, because it is like saying, if I paint my car red versus blue, which one's going to go faster? So you do a bunch of random studies on cars, painting them red or blue. It's like, well, probably not going to matter.
That's a ridiculous analogy. Why would you say that? That has nothing to do with bodybuilding.
It might affect other things. Might affect the number of speeding tickets you get, okay?
Oh, brother.
For example, police officers are more likely, there's studies on that, more likely to pull over a red car. They're more likely to than, say, a blue car. Well, that could reduce your total travel time. And I would suggest that sometimes with these training volumes, because the volumes people are looking at don't necessarily really impact it, because beyond a certain threshold, it doesn't matter. This is not really a debate, because these ultra high volumes really don't seem to cause more muscle growth. The data is scarce on it, really.
These ultra high volumes don't cause more muscle growth. My God. They cause a window for protein synthesis exercise. They do not cause muscle. They don't cause muscle growth, Blaha. Food does. Protein synthesis must exceed that breakdown. Money is what does. Money is what builds muscles. No money, zero muscles.
It's very conflicting. A lot of the studies themselves have been called into question, and we don't see it in the real world. And I've seen firsthand myself plenty of extremely impressive physiques from guys who do, anywhere from 6 to 12 sets a week per muscle group. Some of the best physiques I've ever seen in my life.
No, he saw the best physiques doing those. They were taking steroids because they're lazy, they don't eat. So they used steroids, hormones. They want to destroy their health because they're too lazy to go out and actually do it properly and eat because they don't have any money. But you know what's the funny part? They don't have any money to eat, but they have money to buy drugs. Maybe the drugs are cheaper. They found out it was just cheaper than them eating. And so they took the drugs, and the drugs stimulated something temporarily there. Maybe some protein synthesis was stimulated from the little artificial diet that they're eating. That's why they're so lazy. And then they go, look, Mom. And here's the funny part. They're eating a lot of carbohydrates. And you know what testosterone does? It draws a lot of glycogen into the muscle. And so they don't even know what they're getting there exactly taking steroids. They think steroids build muscles. And then they eat the wrong kind of diet. I'm not saying some of the protein you're eating there and you taking a steroid may synthesize protein, the little protein that you're eating. But it's also going to synthesize glycogen. Get it? Yeah, that's why they talk about sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and myofibular hypertrophy, because they exist. They exist. That's why, me personally, I try not to eat a lot of glycogen, a lot of carbs, or whatever you want to call it, complex or just carbs in general. Carbs in general will make me fat. I usually stick to complex carbohydrates because they'll load as glycogen in the muscle, but it's just an energy source you're using to try to. It's a drug. Really, you're using it as a drug in the gym to lift heavier. So it does help a little bit to lift heavier, but it also pulls you through these workouts. Because if you're just on a protein diet, you'll notice it's going to be really hard to work out. Like, you just don't have that drive to go to the gym and work out. You're not going to have that drive. It's really hard. You have to actually force yourself in there to lift weights and do all that kind of stuff on a high protein diet. So that's why I understand why people are taking these complex carbs, because it's a driving force. It's a drug, and it's driving you to do that.
Some of the strongest people I've ever seen in my life. So we know that it's possible. And here's my problem with all of this.
He's lying. He's never said that he never saw any natural people like that built amazing physiques. No, he does not going to tell you that. What he's referring to is drug people, drug addicts. Well, they built amazing physique. Yeah, it's temporary though. It's fake. As long as they keep taking that drug, dude.
That's why I say stimulate, don't annihilate. I've had a lot of clients who came to me who were doing way too much volume, over 20 sets a week, getting completely stalled, making zero progress for months and months and months on end.
Yeah, like Blaha, he's made zero progress in 30 years. And his client is stalled, didn't make any more progress after newbie gains because he didn't realize it's based on protein synthesis, needs to exceed that breakdown.
I cut them way back to reasonable amounts. Say, let's do, maybe 10 sets a week per muscle group. Quality sets, let's focus on set quality, training really hard, not trying to go extreme with it. We're not doing bunches of rest pause and all this, right? Not doing triple drop sets. We're just doing sets real close to failure and a failure. Do 10 sets. Magically, what happens? They start making gains, even if they haven't made any gains in a year.
10 sets, they start making gains because they're trained athletes and they start getting something else, a different type of muscle growth. Here's what happens in trained athletes when they do the wrong thing. They get a different type of muscle growth. So this is what they usually get. Muscle fiber hypertrophy in response to 6 weeks of high volume resistance training. It becomes that. You could just say that as a trained person, your training becomes a type of high resistance volume training. That can be all relative. It could be 10, you're doing 10 repetitions. Let's say 5 sets of 10 repetitions or 12. That's already considered high volume. In bodybuilding, it's considered high volume. High volume is anything that's over 5 repetitions, okay? What I'm just saying, this is a trained person, and even at that, five reps still would be considered high volume because you're using sets. So what happens to trained young men is largely attributed to what is their training and what is their muscles attributed to? Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. What is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy? Well, it ain't myofibular hypertrophy, dude. Get it? It's an energy source. You're recovering. So you can go back and lift again, like Blaha says. You're going to recover, dude. You're going to recover. Yeah.
6 months, whatever it is. 6 weeks later, they're bigger and stronger. They're making progress again. Okay? And I've seen it pretty consistently. And so just because of those observations,
they're not bigger and stronger. They just got better at lifting, and then they just got bigger through this glycogen stuff, this sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
And even the data doesn't really show the advantage because you get different studies showing different outcomes. And it's because there probably isn't an advantage. That's enough of just the randomness involved and mismeasurements, problems with the statistical analysis that it really is an advantage. So people are just choosing to do it. But what does it do? Makes you burn out faster. It can create more overuse injuries. Okay? And overuse injuries for being required to deload sets you back. Okay? If you are training so hard that you have to deload every 6 weeks, or you're training with so much volume, it's not even so hard. Training with so much volume, having to deload every 6 weeks. This is something I've come to realize. I've seen this both in data and observation. People don't really gain during their deload weeks. They really don't, not for the most part. It's very minimal. Some people regress during their deload weeks. So if you're having to deload instead of an occasional one like your regular vacations, things come up, right? Kind of forced deloads in your life. If you're having to deload all the time, you end up making less progress. Okay, and then we're still subject to higher uses of injury and the extra time commitment. And I would generally suggest to someone, if they want to spend more time exercising, go do some light cardio. Spend that same time doing cardio rather than lifting weights. Because we reach a point of not only diminished returns, but we reach a point where you're doing nothing but junk volume. And it's not helping you. And if anything, it starts to become a form of exercise addiction, which is its own set of problems. And many of us are very prone to that, myself included. So again, stimulate, don't annihilate.
Yeah, they're annihilating though. They're not stimulating. And Blaha's doing the same thing. He's annihilating himself. And so are the rest of the people out there, the natural people out there. They're all convinced that lifting weights are going to build muscles. That's why they're all complaining out there. They're complaining about fake natties and this and that, whatever.
Hey guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative.
Yes, it's been informative. Do not do what Blaha does. Do not lift weights in the expectation that eventually lifting is going to make you build a muscle. That's why many people quit exercise. Many people quit going to gyms and exercising because they don't see results. And when they don't see results, they quit. That this is not for them. And then they, in their mind, the back of their mind, they believe that steroids are the answer. That because I'm failing, because the weights are not building me muscles, it must be the steroids. The steroids are building muscles. No, the steroids are not building muscles. You've increased the hormones. Your body thinks it's in a how should I put it, in a starvation state. And now you're eating, but you're eating just your garbage food again. And so it's absorbing this garbage food you're eating, like the carbohydrate drug addicted diet. So the carbs, it's drawing it in there as glycogen, and then maybe there's some protein too being pulled in there, whatever little protein you're eating. Very little amounts. That's all it's doing. And so it's retaining it in there as an energy source because it thinks we need to carry you through a famine. The body doesn't see that as like you do. Oh no, I'm trying to build muscles and look cool. Your body just thinks we're going through a famine, we're dying. Why is the hormone so high here? This is unusual. So it starts shutting down your natural processes in your body because it says we're not really in a famine. What's going on here? Something is wrong here, and it starts going around all over the place. It shuts down the testes, the endocrine system, boom, and then you can't figure out why you have no testicles left after these cycles or whatever these people are doing and everything. Their whole system has been damaged and destroyed. It's like diabetics. They eat a drug-induced diet called sugar. They eat so much sugar and carbohydrates. The insulin goes through the roof, man. And then all of a sudden the T cell says, hey, enough is enough. And then they head towards the pancreas, your T cells, the killer cells, and they kill your pancreas where the insulin is coming out because they say this is unusual activity. We need to shut this off or the body's going to die. We need to protect the body from dying. It's just like steroids. They're protecting you from dying. They see the toxicity coming in and the hormone at the same time. They're trying to stop that. They're trying to prevent that. But you keep injecting higher and higher dosages. Every time your body makes it stop working, you inject higher dosages. Just like these people, these diabetics, they're like, you know what? Well, the insulin's not working anymore, doctor. And so what does the doctor do? He says, here, take shots of insulin. You can keep eating your drug-induced carbohydrate diet. And then you don't live long doing that. Diabetics die early doing that. Your body shut it off because it wants you to stop eating that drug-induced carbohydrate diet. Get it? That's the whole point. Stop doing that and you'll survive. But if you inject things now artificially and thinking that you can get away with it, you're going to die early. Did your doctor tell you that though? No. Man, people are really out to lunch. They don't understand the body is just made to protect, is made to keep you alive. Your body is just built to keep you alive. You ain't doing it. Your body's doing it. See you in the next one, friends. Tell what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel, helps with the algorithm. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao. Weights do not build muscles.